on to the part of making this actually do something, we're gonna need some help, because I said we want to be able to hit the Reddit API, and then we want to be able to process that information and then open up a random post from the Reddit API into our browser. So that's a lot of work that I'm probably not gonna reinvent from scratch. I'm definitely not gonna use the native HTTP module and open up like socket connections and manage that. And like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna rely on some people smarter than me who already created some really nice packages that I can install, and we're gonna do that. So I have the packages listed here, and what we're gonna do is we're going to install one called Open, one called Node Fetch, and one called Yargs. So I'm gonna talk about these right quick. So Open literally takes a URL and it opens it up on your default browser on your computer. So that's what's gonna open it for us. It's really cool. Node Fetch is exactly like window.fetch, if you've ever used that before. It's just the Node polyfill version of that, so it works the same way. And then Yargs is basically a function that's going to interpret and process, I don't use that word because I'm gonna use it twice. It's gonna interpret the process object for us so we can get access to things like flags and arguments to our Reddit CLI. Because I do want to pass an argument, I want to pass a flag to it that's going to allow us to bypass opening the browser and instead just print it out on the terminal. Maybe I don't want my browser to be open because my boss is over my shoulder, but I just want to print it out on the terminal so I can see it. So we can just pass the flag that says like print instead of open, and then that's what we want to do. So we want to be able to interpret that a little easier. So we'll use Yargs for that. So follow along with me, but I also have all the code here that you can copy and paste. But I'm pretty much just going to go through this and then we'll figure it out. So first thing is, let's get our imports going. So we're going to import, what did I say, fetch. Well, actually, before we import, let's actually do our install, right? So let's say npm install. And by the way, you can do I for short for install. So you can say install, or you can just say npm I, which is less characters. So npm I node fetch, we have open, and then we have Yargs. And then I'm gonna save those. And remember, save puts it in our dependencies, which we have here. Boom, we got our dependencies, we're good to go. And now I'm gonna import them. So I'm gonna say fetch from node fetch. I'm gonna say open from open, and then Yargs from Yargs. And I think Yargs, I did have a problem with the interop between CommonJS and ES6. I'm gonna just go look to make sure I got that one right. Oh, I guess it was fine. It must have been something else I was doing. Okay. The next thing we want to do is let's try to process any potential arguments we might pass in. Like I said, I did want to pass in a print flag that's going to bypass the opening of the browser. And depending on whether that's passed or not, that's going to determine what other logic we have. So we should probably process that first because we need that information. So I'm going to do something called, I'm going to say Yargs, and that's a function. And then I can pass in process.argv. And basically what this is, just to, I wonder if I can log this. Yeah, I can log this. I was trying to think if there's going to be anything sensitive on there. Yeah, I'm going to just log this for you so you can see what it is. So process.argv. And then I think you'll get the idea. So we don't have to install our CLI again. It's already linked. It's a live file. So we can just run the Reddit command again. So you can see process.argv, it returns an array. The first two things are always going to be the path to the interpreter, which is Node, and then the path to the CLI, which is Reddit. And then everything else after that is going to be like arguments and flags. So for instance, if I want to say Reddit, and then I want to say print, like that, you can see it's passing as a third index number 2 into this array. Or if I wanted to pass an argument like hello, you can see that it literally goes in order from left to right, right? That's how it works. What Yargs is going to do, it's going to process this and put it in an object for us in a key value way. That way we can use it a lot easier. But there's nothing stopping us from just doing RGV bracket, split everything split everything after these first two and just grab the stuff here. That works just as fine as well. I just want to show you a really nice package that I use all the time. So we're going to process that. We're going to get the ARGV here. Like I said, this is going to be an object with whatever flags was passed in. So we got that. The next thing we want to do is we want to make a call to Reddit. So if you go to reddit.com And if you go to /.json, you actually get the JSON output of the entire front page of Reddit, like that. It's really cool. So we should look at this. Let me make this bigger. We should look at this for a little bit because we need to understand the data structure because we're going to query this. So we get back an object with a data property that has a children property that's an array of children, and each child has a data property. And on that data property, there should be a URL that we want. And I want to say it's called, I have it somewhere. There's so many things on here. Permalink, yeah. So I want to get the permalink of, each, of whatever child we're going to open. And that's what I want to get. And I'll pin that to reddit.com/that subreddit / whatever. So that's how we're going to get our random thing there. So let's make a call to the Reddit API. And the way we're going to do that is using fetch. So I'm going to say fetch, or I'm going to say res for response equals await fetch. And fetch is going to take that URL here. So reddit.com/.json. And if you've never used fetch in the browser before, it actually doesn't return the data. It returns a response object that has like status codes, error messages, different things like that. And if we want the data from that, we have to resolve the promise of turning it into JSON, which is permissified. So then we can get the data, which will be data equals await res.json. So we'll get that. And just to make sure we are kosher, we will log this. So we do that. And boom. What did I log? Oh, I logged res. Sorry, it logged data. Okay, so you can see we got the same data that we had in the browser. Obviously, it's not going to print all the objects here, but you can see it's hidden Reddit. It's good to go. And just to show you just how quickly we were able to do this, we imported 3 things and we're already hitting the Reddit API and getting data. That's really impressive because we were able to leverage the community and different things like that. If we had to do all this ourselves, we'd be like close to 100 lines of code right now, especially hitting the API. Well, I'm exaggerating a little bit. Not that much, but still not as clean as this. Cool, so now we got the data. The next thing that we want to do is we want to get a random post. So we'll say post, or let's just get a random index. And a random index would be, so data.children bracket. Okay, let's do this first. Let's save this in a variable. Children equals that. And then now we can say, let's get children, what is it, math.random, children.length, no, it's math.random and then like math.floor, children.length times, you know what, I already have this. Why am I trying to do this math right now? Just copy this. There we go. So this is what we want to do. I do the random stuff all the time. You think I remember this, but I don't. Okay, so we want to say, there it is. I was way wrong. We want to math.floor, math.random times our children.length. There we go. So this will give us a random child in the child array. You could do ceiling if you want to, but floor is fine. So now we got our random index. And now what we want to do is just, or actually this is our random post. Now what we want to do is decide if we need to open this post in the browser or if we just want to print out something about it. So what we can do is we can say if rgv.print. So if someone passes in the print flag, then what we want to do is we just want to console.log that post. So we'll do something like this. We'll say title is random post dot title. I'm assuming there's a title there. We'll look if it's not. And then link would be, let's make a link variable here. The link is going to be https reddit.com/ or actually I think the permalink has a leading slash and I don't feel like cleaning all that up, so we'll just trust it. So it'll be that. That'll be the link. And then we'll just say link like that. And then else we'll say open the link like that. So let's try it out. Let's see if we can get this to print with a random post, and then we'll try to open it up. So we'll say hello, we don't need that, get rid of that, but I'll say print. And boom, title's undefined. Like I did guess on that, so that wasn't gonna work. And then obviously this needs to be permalink. Oh, it's data, that's why. Permalink, and this is data.title. So let's try that again. There we go. So we have title. You can see there's the title of a random post from the front page of Reddit, and here is the URL that is messed up because it's not permalink. It must be something else. It is, oh, it's not camel case. Okay. There we go. Let's try that again. There we go. So we got our link here, and then we got something about adult lions pretending to be hurt. Okay, that sounds pretty cute. And it's random every time. So if we do it again, we get another one. Now let's try to open this up in our browser. So how do we do that? Just don't pass the print flag, and we should be able to do that. So I'm gonna exclude the print flag, and I'm gonna do that, and bam. It just opened it up in my default browser, which for me is Firefox. Don't judge me. And I'm not gonna scroll down and hit play on that, but you get the point. It opened it up to it, and it works. So really good CLI if you like Reddit and you don't feel like going to Reddit, you just want to see something random. There you go. You can just type in Reddit and get a random thing today and check it out. So let's just go back and reflect on the code that we wrote a little bit, just to try to understand it a little more. So we have this hash bang here that tells us to interpret this file in the node environment. We installed these 3 node modules, and then moving on, we were able to use yargs, which was able to process the options and arguments passed into whatever CLI is being executed, in this case, the Reddit CLI. We used the fetch function here to communicate with the Reddit API and get some data. We processed that data, did some random indexing here that I struggled with, and we created a link to that random post. And then we just did a check to see if someone passed in the print flag or not. And if they did, just do a log. If they didn't, open it up in the browser. And that's it. And then the process was stopped. It exited down here with a process of exit of 0. There was no other code to run. There are no more background tasks. There's nothing scheduled. So it bottomed out and there was no more ticks to be ticked, and it just stopped and our code was done executing, even though the browser opened. And that's basically what happened. So as you can see, you can get pretty powerful here with a CLI, knowing what you know about file systems and the fact that we did that interpolation on an HTML file. Knowing what you know about CLIs now, you could probably start putting together how some of the really good front-end tools that you use work. Webpack is a CLI. It also uses the file system. You just did both. So you're really starting to see how these technologies work together and how powerful they can be. And this is just a glimpse. If you really want to make a good CLI, you probably want to use a CLI framework. Just like there's front-end frameworks, there's frameworks for everything else on Node too. There's CLI frameworks, there's API frameworks, there's testing frameworks. Just like React is a front-end framework, there's frameworks for stuff here as well. So I would encourage you to see if there is something out there before you try to build something from scratch. I personally wouldn't build an API or a CLI like this. I would use a framework that has way better support and handling and help message and automations, all types of really nice stuff. But just to let you know that even if you did do it, it's not so bad. So any questions on the CLI? The question was, if you have an object and it logs object, how do you see that? Well, let's first talk about why it does that and then how we can get around it. So I'm just gonna make a new file here called test.js, and I'm gonna make an object, and I'm gonna make another object, and I'm gonna make another object like this, and then we'll put something in here. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll log this. So node test.js. Okay. Oh wait, that logged all of it. Of course it did. Let me make another one. Okay, let's try that. There we go. Okay, I knew I had to get deep. So as you can saw, I tried to log it the first time to get it to do the object, and it didn't. And then I added one more layer, and then it did. So at some point, the logging mechanism in Node is like, okay, you're just going really deep on all these objects, so we're just not going to log all of them. We're just going to paraphrase for you. And that's basically what's happening. When you have like a certain level of hierarchy of data, Node.js tries to simplify the output of your logs by just paraphrasing that, hey, there's an object here, there's a sub-object. And it's actually really helpful, especially for like streaming these logs, which you can stream logs from Node and to like some provider that you're paying for. A lot of big companies pay millions of dollars per year to have their logs stored. Some even per month, like big budgets to store logs. So the less logs there are, the less things that are being logged, the less you're being charged, and the faster that they are. And also it's just less noisy. When you're really building an application and you have your development server up, you got a lot of stuff just streaming and piping in, and you're really only concerned about the thing that you logged and not all the sub things about it. So it's just a nice way to clean that up as well. But like you said, sometimes you do want to be able to see it. So how do you get around it? Well, there's two options. Well, you just log a little closer to what you want. So instead of logging O, I might log O.U.L. And then now I'm able to see that because I logged a little closer. So that's one way. The other way is you can do JSON.stringify and then pass in O. And then pass in null, and then you can pass in like how many indent spaces you want. I like to indent by 2, so I can do that. And then it'll print it out like that, the whole thing. It won't be nice and beautiful and colored, like the rest of the output is, because you're technically just logging a string, but it'll be formatted and it'll show every single thing all the way down to the closest child. So those are the two ways you can get around that.
You were passing flags, right? Like using double hyphens. Can we pass parameters using just one hyphen, and does Yarn recognize that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we can do the same thing. So I can say rgv.print or rgv.p, right? So let's try that. So if I say, we can do that. And I think maybe capital P. There we go. Yeah. So if it's a capital with the shorthand, then it'll read it for you.